What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Homie Hangout, where we help others move in excellence. And 3 people have been arrested, indicted with conspiracy to commit first-degree murder and some other charges in relation to the beating death of Whitey Bulger. Right? Whitey Bulger was killed back in 2018 while housed in the USP Hazleton Federal Prison in West Virginia. At the time, it was also known as Misery Mountain. He was 89 years old, and he got beat with a lock and a sock to the point that he was unrecognizable, right? The 3 people arrested are Folio's Freddy Diaz, 55 years old, Paul Pauly Pecolejo, right? 48 years old, and Sean McKinnon, 36. They're all charged with, like I said, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. Freddie and Pauly allegedly beat Bulger to death with the lock and the sock on their way to breakfast, right? Just hours, like 12 hours after he came into his cell at the prison. We're going to talk about that in a minute because there's some conspiracy stuff there, right? Freddie's also charged as a murder by a federal inmate already doing a life sentence, already serving life. I didn't know that that was actually an additional charge. So Freddie's in there for double murder leading up to this, right, already. And he's an associate of the Genovese mob, right? He's out of Massachusetts, Boston area, but that's who he was rocking with, was the Genovese mob. He was an enforcer, whatever you call it, hitman, whatever, right? So what's interesting is a lot of Whitey Bulger's telling, not all of it, but a lot of his telling was against the Patriarca family, right? Which is another Italian mafia family that operated in Rhode Island and in Boston. It was called the Boston Mafia, the New England Mafia, the Rhode Island Mafia, right? And they have a close connection, right? The Patriarcas and the Genovese have a long-standing relationship, right? And Irish mobsters tend to beef with Italian mobsters as it is. So I think that's an interesting twist. I don't know that that's why this happened. I think it happened because Whitey Bulger's a rat, right? But we'll get to a little bit that in a second. McKinnon was charged with making false statements to the Fed. So the other two, Freddie and Pauly, they're already locked up, right? And so they got brought out of their cell, told, hey, fool, you're under arrest, and then they went back to their cell. McKinnon, that's how I guess it happened. McKinnon was charged with making false statements. He was out. He was on supervised release in Florida, and they snatched him up. So quick little timeline. Whitey Bulger is a fascinating individual. His story is fascinating. There's many, many layers to it. I'm not going to get into all of that right now. If you guys are interested, hop in the comments. Let me know what parts of this character's escapade you might want to dig more into, and we can go from there. But so 1994, right? Rico and Diamond's coming down. He gets a hit up from, I think the dude's name is Connolly, right? His Fed handler. The fool's been telling for like 20 years at that point, right? Right around 20 years. And also run around whacking people, doing mob shit. So anyways, he hears the Rico and Diamond's coming down against his little neighborhood. He dips. He takes off. He goes on the run, right? Fast forward, June 2011, he's 81 years old. He gets caught outside his apartment complex in Santa Monica, California, right? He's got like $800,000 cash. He's got, dozens of guns. He was handling his business. June 2013, right? He's indicted in dozens and dozens of racketeering and money laundering, extortion, weapon charges, the whole 9 yards. And they have him tied to 19 murders, right? So he decides to go to trial, right? So he goes to trial, and he winds up getting found guilty of, I think, like 31 of the counts, and then he's tied to 11 murders, right? So November 2013, he gets sentenced to 2 life sentences plus 5 years in the federal system, right? And so 2014, he gets sent to USP Coleman 2 in Florida, right? From this place in Tucson, Arizona. Now, my understanding is the federal place he was at in Tucson and USP Coleman 2 are both soft yards, right? They're kind of medical places, but it's a safe haven for, informants, high-profile dropouts, people like Whitey Bulger, right? And so he was there. He's at Coleman. He has a lot of health issues, right? Because he's an old man. February 2018, Whitey gets into it with a nursing supervisor, right? So the story is he was having chest pain, right? And so he was going to the doctors, he was going to the nurse within the facility, right, within Coleman 2. And this nurse supervisor said, "Hey, fool, you got to go to this outside hospital to be evaluated because you're having some issues and you should go over there. You have a lot of other health issues. We want to send you to a hospital and have them look at you." And Whitey snapped, right? This is what she says. He snapped. He threatened her. He said, quote unquote, "I still know people. I still have connections back home." She spooked, right? Because Whitey Bulger does know people and does have connections, right? And so no reason to think that had stopped. Also no reason to think that he's really gonna have the nurse supervisor whack, but whatever. She spooked. The dude's a killer, right? Um, and so he doesn't go right to the hospital. He goes to the hole. They put him in ADSEG. She's scared, and they decide, you know what? This dude needs to go. He needs to transfer to another prison because the staff is unsafe, right? So they make that decision in April, right? February 2018 is when this happens. April 2018, they say Whitey Bulger got to do a movie, right? And they put him up for transfer. But that transfer gets denied. Now, at the time, the dude's like 89 years old. He has aortic stenosis, high blood pressure, prostate and bladder issues, right? And now he's having these chest pains. The chest pains had gone away, he said, but the fool got issues. Now, he had said that he never threatened the nurse, that it all just got blown out of proportion, and that she was yelling at him and raising her voice, and that triggered a cardiac event for him, right? That was his story. He was sticking to it. The administration's like, nah, fool, you got to go. They put him up for transfer, it gets denied because there's this care level designation, I guess, in the feds in terms of like your health, maybe. And so depending on that score, depending on where you fall on that scale, influences where you can go to and that sort of thing. This dude's old, he's in a wheelchair, he's got his health problems. So his care level designation made it to where he really would never get transferred anywhere except some other kind of a medical facility, right? Like a prison that has other medical folks like him. But then trip on this because he does get transferred, right? So then his care designation is changed. And now if you look at his care designation at the time, it says he's healed up, right? He's not 100%, he's not a spring chicken, but he's doing good. He's recovered from these health issues. So that changes his care level designation, and that opens up the door, literally, for him to be transferred. Now, the former warden of Coleman 2 that was over there with Whitey said that what happened was because he refused treatment, because he refused to go to the outside hospital, because he was just being a jackass, right? That they really couldn't verify if he wasn't healthy, right? Since he didn't want treatment, essentially like, oh, well, since you don't want help, there must be nothing wrong with you. And they went into his paperwork and adjusted it. I think that's BS, right? Because just because somebody is not seeking treatment for a particular health issue, you look at an 89, 90-year-old dude in a wheelchair that has all these other health issues, it's pretty hard to turn around and be like, you know what, man? Since you don't want to see a doctor, you must be fine. But that's what they did, right? So there's a lot of questions around why that designation was made and who made it, which is unclear. So, but the old warden, right? He's like, look, when we put them up for transfer, we don't say where we want them to go. It's not recommendations, right? The feds decide that, right? The head of the prisons, which is some administrative office like in Texas or something, they decide based on a variety of factors, and they're supposed to look at, do you have enemies? Can you be safe there? This, that, whatever. Whitey Bulger had enemies, Holmes. He had a lot of enemies because he was both a gangster for 30 plus years and an informant for 20 plus years, right? So in both of those lifestyles, you're gonna make enemies, right? So he gets transferred, right? He goes to this transfer center first, but then in October, he shows up to Hazleton. Now, at the time he goes to USB Hazleton, they'd had 2 murders already in the last 6 months leading up to his arrival, right? The staff there is ready to leave. They're ready to revolt. They say it's radically understaffed. It's dangerous. Nobody wants to be there. Like I said, they call it Misery Mountain. it sounds like the staff and the residents were miserable. The Department of Justice and the Inspector General actually had an active investigation into quote unquote conditions affecting safety and security, right? So everybody knew that this place was rocking, right? And there's like a lower level side to it too, but this is, there's the high power side, right? Um, but they still brought them there. You know what I mean? And obviously, you got hitters over there. That is not a place for high profile dropouts, right? So he shows up to Hazleton, and he'd been ad sick for 8 months, right? Before that, because of the issue he got into with the nurse over there at Coleman. And so he's like, I don't want to, allegedly, right? She says, I don't want to go to protective custody. I don't want to go to ADSEC. I'm tired of it, man. I want to go mob around outside, right? Cruise around in his chair or whatever. He wants to feel the sunshine, right? They said, okay. Now in California, there's precedents. There's a history of some individuals not wanting to be housed in protected environments, non-general population environments, right? But the administration decides you don't have a choice, homie. You're going to stay here, right? Because your presence elsewhere is a threat to the safety and security of the institution, right? Which is a buzzword that prison administrators use to justify anything, right? But they won't let you, right? Like if Whitey Bulger was in state prison in California and was like, hey, pull me out on the main line, it's not going to happen, right? It doesn't matter what he wants and what he requests and appeals he writes. The prison don't want that headache. You know what I mean? Well, I mean, nowadays, I don't know, the system has changed. But so anyways, he goes, they get him to a cell. He gets to a cell like about 9 o'clock at night, lays it down, wakes up the next morning, gets wheeled by two individuals. I think the allegations are that he was wheeled by the two individuals that now they're saying killed him. And that was it. This McKinnon dude, I don't know if he comes in the picture just as somebody who knew about it, right? Or maybe seen it or something else. But he's charged with conspiracy too. But he's not charged with actually assaulting Bulger. And then he's charged with making false statements, right? So he didn't tell. At least he hadn't told so far. That might change. So anyways, that's what happened to Whitey Bulger, right? And that's to some degree kind of old news, but now these three are caught up on it. I'm interested to see why. Why are they arrested for it now? It suggests that somebody's telling, of course. And so that just kind of from a legal standpoint and watching what they do with raids and indictments, I'm interested in how that came about. It's widely publicized that old what's his name, Freddie, right? The mafia dude. He had said repeatedly, apparently in the past, right, that he don't like snitches, he hates snitches, he's gonna kill snitches, he blah blah blah. In my experience, man, a lot of people that talk like that wind up becoming snitches though too. You know what I mean? Like and so I wonder. I think it would be very interesting. I'm not putting that jacket on nobody at all. But just saying, just because you've screamed how much you hate snitches and just because you've taken the wind of a snitch even doesn't make you immune from flipping too, right? Like things change. So anyways, help others move with excellence. That's what homies do. Help yourself at the same time because you're worth it. Help your community because they need you. Check out the other content, man. There's all kinds of stuff. Talking about the law, talking about different criminal organizations, talking about the streets, talking about mental health, interviews, all sorts of things, man. And if you haven't already and you made it this far, what are you waiting for, homie? Like and subscribe and let's keep it pushing.